The 5 colors. Yellow print thinking is based on socio-political concepts about organizations in which interests, conflicts, and power play important roles in change. It assumes that getting everyone on the same wavelength is a change in itself. It is thought that resistance and failure are inevitable if you do not get all or at least most of the important individuals that hold power on board. Some commonly used interventions are facilitating communication, lobbying, negotiating, and third-party conflict resolution. The result of change is difficult to predict because it depends on the distribution and shifts in standpoints and the influence of the most important players. The primary consideration of the yellow point change agent is always keep in mind the cluster of interests, parties, and the players involved. The theory behind blueprint thinking is to carefully describe and define the outcome or the result beforehand. With blueprint thinking, the change process can be relatively short in comparison with other ways of thinking. It's feasible to determine rationally and ahead of time when the change will be completed. With blueprint thinking, thinking and doing are sequential. Think first and then do. Red print thinking focuses on motivation and states that stimulating people in the right way is believed to induce behavioral change. Red print thinking is the concept that people will make changes if you guide them in the right direction and reward them for changing. The primary consideration of the red print change agent is that human factor plays an important role. Green print thinking has its roots in action learning and organizational development. Changing and learning are conceptually closely linked. The outcomes of green print change are difficult to predict because it depends on the extent and the nature of what people learn, which in turn depends on both their learning ability and the effectiveness of the learning environment. The primary consideration of the green print change agent is to motivate people to learn with each other and from each other in order to establish continuous learning in collective settings. White print thinking views change as autonomous. The inner desires and strengths of people are the decisive factors, and outside influence can only have limited effects only if the people that are changing will welcome it. The opportunities to exert influence lie mainly in helping to clear obstacles and in challenging people, calling on their strengths and self-confidence. White print thinking acknowledges that people and organizations are in a constant state of change. White print thinking also assumes that no one can stop change from happening. It can only be helped or hindered. The primary consideration of the white print change agent is to observe what is making things happen and then change. The next concept that I'm going to discuss is the method, which are the main elements of planned change. Discussions with colleagues and clients and an examination of literature revealed a large number of similarities and differences across the diversity of change processes. Caluwe and Verma thought it was essential to bring clarity to a common method for 2 reasons. So the process is seen as a whole, allowing to describe and communicate about change processes, and 2, the elements of change processes form a roadmap to help change agents shape change processes and increase their awareness of blind spots. Certain elements appear to be present in successful change processes, and there appear to be 6 common reoccurring elements. The first is outcome, also known as goals, results, direction, improvement, and renewal. 2, history, the cause, the need, the motive. 3, actors, the roles, the parties, and the social dimension. 4, phases, steps, sequence, and technical aspects. 5, communication, the interaction, cultural aspects, and sense-making. And lastly, 6, steering, the monitoring, the directing, and the managing. So the next concept is steering, and this concept starts the change process from the idea and goes all the way to the outcomes. There are 4 phases of the change process, which are diagnosis, change strategy selection, intervention planning, and interventions. Diagnosis has 2 aspects: the process by which you try to find out what is going on, and the information that is gathered as a result. In selecting a change strategy, it is argued that isolated attempts to bring about permanent change are probably doomed to failure because of the stabilizing resistance of dominant existing systems. The idea is to look for leverage and to concentrate on the seeds from which change will grow. The change strategy is the link between understanding what is going on and the impulse for action. Interventions are implemented in accordance with an intervention plan. Because things hardly ever go as planned, it is typical for a plan to be reviewed and adjusted. And this is the steering cycle, so giving room to adjust the change processes. So the first is implementing the next phase, and then assessing the progress, reconsidering the outcomes, and planning the process or replanning the process. De Callaway's definitions, perspectives, models, and theories on organizational change present both strengths and weaknesses. The first is that his ideas are very versatile. Different situations may require different change strategies. The color theory is a good example of this because it allows for different perspectives on change. The next, De Callaway and Verma came up with different thinking styles to approach change to be able to use multiple viewpoints to understand issues. To understand a situation or issue better, it helps to look at it from the different angles. The next is that he recognizes the need to continuously learn. De Callaway and Vermack stated in the introduction of Learning to Change that the reason they chose to title it Learning to Change is because the process of creating the book changed them, as well as explaining that the essence of being a change agent is the endless quest to learn what change is, how it works, and where to contribute. Another strength is that De Callaway took a variety of already established organizational change theories, strategies, and explanations and clumped them together, forming one common language for change. Lastly are the weaknesses of organizational change defined by De Callaway. The first weakness is that his viewpoints and explanations are limited to situations with planned change. Planned change is necessary and effective in many situations, however, it is not sufficient for all organizational change situations. The next weakness is that it is essential that all organizational members are aware and informed of the advantages and limitations of different approaches to change, as well as the broader context for the change itself, as they develop a common language for thinking and talking about change. So, for instance, as I went through this presentation, there are a lot of explanations and concepts to become aware of, and for a lot of his situations the ways of his change processes to work and carry out, all of the organizational members would have to understand these change processes. The next weakness is that the naming nor the meaning of the colors in the color theory are straightforward, and therefore can have implicit bias without an individual even knowing what change characteristics each color entails. And lastly, there are dark sides and weaknesses within each color change approach. This is similar to each leadership theory we have discussed thus far. When an individual strives to use a theory and manipulate the concept, they can implement the theories in a negative manner, leading to the failure of the change process itself. That is the end of my presentation. Here are my references. And if you have any questions, please feel free to comment on the discussion post or reach out to me. Thank you all and have a great day.